My name is Stephanie Fedro Byram. Sorry. But before I get into my prepared remarks, I wanted to thank Ms. Fleischer for her suggestion of using any surplus money from the food services to make some more environmentally friendly choices. My daughter was actually one of the students who spoke at the school board meeting pre-pandemic to advocate for discontinuing the use of styrofoam trays. And this seems like a potential opportunity to do that. So thank you, Ms. Fleischer. I have 3 daughters, one of whom is transgender. I'm here to talk about her existence and the existence of transgender students in our district. Her existence has nothing to do with sex, nothing to do with politics or religion or personal values and opinions. Acknowledging that she and others like her exist is not dangerous, it's not indoctrinating. It is an opportunity to ensure that these kids have a chance to thrive just like all students in our district. In the conversation taking place in the community about inappropriate books, someone mentioned the book Introducing Teddy and how books like it do not have a place in school, that this is not the role of the school to teach about these things. I'm going to read a short passage from the book, and I wish I had time to read the whole book because it's darling. "You seem sad today, Thomas," said Errol. "Don't worry, the park will cheer you up." Thomas the teddy wasn't so sure. "Oh no, even the swing isn't working. What's wrong, Thomas? Talk to me." "If I tell you," said Thomas, "you might not be my friend anymore." "Oh, I will always be your friend, Thomas." Thomas the teddy took a deep breath. "I need to be myself, Errol. In my heart, I've always known that I'm a girl teddy, not a boy teddy. I wish my name was Tilly, not Thomas." "Is that why you've been so sad?" Errol asked. "I don't care if you're a girl teddy or a boy teddy. What matters is that you are my friend. You're the best friend a bear could have," said Tilly. This book is not indoctrinating. It has 0 sexual content. It is not sex ed. It is a story of acceptance and friendship. Now I want to share something my daughter, I have to read fast. Now I want to share something my daughter experienced last week at the high school. She was in class and someone deliberately misgendered her. Other students corrected him. His response was, "Ugh, I always have to know this stuff. The 2020s are so hard." A couple of points can be made here. One, my guess is that this student is not being taught at home that trans people exist, and if they do, it's probably not in the most positive light. 2, perhaps if this student had been read books like Introducing Teddy or had appropriate conversations in advisory or guidance groups, then this hurtful conversation would not have taken place. An important study found that 82% of transgender individuals have considered killing themselves, and 40% have attempted suicide, with suicidality highest among transgender youth. It also found that interpersonal microaggressions, like the one my daughter experienced, made a unique, statistically significant contribution to lifetime suicide attempts. There's been a lot of talk about mental health over the past 2 years in this district. These statistics are important, frightening, and they deserve attention. One point that the student made to my daughter is correct. It is the 2020s. The reality is that the world is changing. Transgender people have always existed. We are just now at a time in history where it is, I won't say safe because that's not really the case, but is thankfully more accepted. And people are able to live as the person they were meant to be, to live their lives as fully as any one of us, to live their lives authentically. This is a beautiful thing. It's not something to fear or avoid talking about. Learning about the existence of my kid is not going to make your kid trans. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But learning about the existence of my kid and others like her in our schools, yes, even in elementary school, our community, our world, just may make your child more accepting and understanding and supportive. and that's a good thing. I just want to say thank you to the administration, the teachers who support our students and students like mine and keep them safe. And that we're lucky to live in a district that has a DEI committee and mission, which I've run out of time to repeat, but thank you. Thank you for your time.
Next commenter, please.
Hi, Meredith Driscoll, Woodhaven Drive, and I have to say I'm glad I still live rent-free in some people's heads around here. I have been asked to read a letter by Christy Masco, who could not attend tonight. She's a community member and a mom of a transgender kid. This began as a reply to a transphobic post in a local Facebook group. I am the proud mom of a 16-year-old 10th grade student at Mount Lebanon. My child came out as transgender last summer, and I will ask my fellow community members to have empathy and compassion for a subject that not many understand, myself included. But I'm learning. I really hope at least some of you will be willing to learn with me too, because this isn't going away. Not here in the bubble of Mount Lebanon, not in Texas or Florida, not anywhere. In fact, for any data geeks like me, research indicates that 2% of kids identify as transgender. There are 5,407 students in the district. That means 118 kids in our community possibly identify as transgender. When I first came across this post, I knew if I were to remain silent, I'd be guilty of complicity. And if I didn't speak up, who would? And who will advocate for kids like mine, if not me? I wasn't in the classroom, none of us were. I don't know the teacher, but I'm fairly certain I know why she read the book. That Thursday was Transgender Day of Visibility, just like every March 31st every year. Transgender Day of Visibility is an important day to kids like mine because it honors and recognizes generations of struggle, activism, and courage for transgender individuals to live bravely and authentically. It's a day that honors progress made, and it gives allies like me an opportunity to support and stand in solidarity with the transgender community. The mission of Mount Lebanon School District's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative is that all kids, regardless of race, gender, ability, or socioeconomic status, deserve to feel welcome, supported, safe, and included in a meaningful way. This book falls within those guidelines. Again, I wasn't in the class, but I've read the book, and for the sake of clarity, the book never says God makes mistakes. It also never mentions sex, intercourse, puberty, body parts, religion, politics, or anything sexual, and it never attempts to instill core beliefs, morals, and worldview fundamentals into the reader's mind. The book is a beautifully written, brightly illustrated story, and the main character just so happens to be a transgender boy. The focus of the book is empathy, compassion, families, self-esteem, confidence, kindness, caring, dreams, and aspirations. All of these things are what we want for our kids. All kids need to see examples of themselves in the material they see at school. I will never understand how it feels to be transgender, but I love my kid unconditionally, and I'm learning as much as I can so I can be the biggest supporter in a very cruel world. There are 117 kids just like mine within our 6-mile bubble who need love and support too. I've been trying really hard to seek to understand instead of being understood, and I'm asking the same of you. My kid still looks like every other 16-year-old boy. You would not know my kid is transgender unless we told some of you. Again, it makes no sense to me, but it doesn't have to. I love my child unconditionally. Most importantly, my kid is no longer depressed or nearly as anxious since coming out. And here's what I've learned so far. Maybe it will help you. Being transgender isn't a personal choice. Being transgender has nothing to do with sex, religion, appearance, attraction, morals, clothing, intercourse, politics, or what any of us think about it. Their friends have been very supportive since coming out as trans, but sadly not all of these friends feel supportive in their own homes. So folks, make statements like things weren't like this when we were growing up isn't going to cut it anymore. I'm not saying your feelings aren't valid, and I get that some of you are not ready to accept transgender people, but I hope you come around someday because transgender kids aren't going anywhere. They threaten no one, they are hurting no one, and these kids deserve respect and love, as well as the same rights as any other citizen of America. So if there's a book that will help 118 kids in our 6-mile bubble feel just slightly less alone in a community that's in an uproar about their very state of being, I say let them read the damn book. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Please state your name and address. You'll have 5 minutes.
Holly McCullough for Wood Drive. I'm going to apologize in advance that I did not prepare any remarks tonight. I knew that this was a controversial topic. I was naively hoping that it wouldn't come up because what we're talking about right now, having a discussion that there need to be a trigger warning or a special letter written home, that there'd be notification because this is such a hard topic, a difficult topic, a potentially, I've seen the language of grooming, sexual, ideological, political. When we're talking about the existence of me, my family, my nieces, my nephews, my brother, my son, my daughter's uncle, the families that existed for all of our children's and our nieces and nephews' lives. They've known that I am married to a woman. We've been together for over 30 years. We exist as a family. My daughter in kindergarten, she's a junior now in high school, could have been in kindergarten or first grade talking about her two mothers. She's not talking about sex. She's not grooming your children. She is not trying to convert them or change their religion. She is talking about our existence, our simple existence in the world. And I feel the hostility in this crowd to that existence. And it's hard to deal with, even as an over 50-year-old who has faced lots of hostility from seemingly loving people. To feel like, I've seen people saying that we don't talk about whether somebody's married. Kindergarten, first grade, second grade, family is part of the curriculum of every school. Family is talked about by Mr. Rogers. It's talked about everywhere. These are family structures. These are siblings that were being talked about in the book. A child thinking about their upcoming sibling being born. These are not dirty topics. They're not anti-religious topics. They are not political, ideological. They are existence of children and families and mothers and fathers in this district. We are parents as well. Our children are students here, and we are not something that need to be trigger warned or sent out for notices to be a scary special topic. Your kids will know about us because they will be in school. They are in school with the other kids' children here, like Stephanie talked about with her daughter. They are in school with these kids now. They are in school, in grade school with these kids. I have nieces and nephews who are trans, who are 10 years old. Now they're still discovering this, but they're 10. Guess what? They're going to be in school with your kids. Okay? What kind of world are we giving them? They exist. We exist. We are not dirty, sexual beings, ideological, political beings. We are people in your community, your neighbors, and probably family members as well. And I just want to say, please don't treat us as some kind of sick, some kind of sickness in this community that needs to be warned that we exist. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Please state your name and address. You'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Tessa Watkins. I live in Ward 1 in Mount Lebanon. Trigger warning, I am trans. I'm also a parent here. I have a daughter. She's 3 years old, and she'll be going to school with your kids. If you're in the Mount Lebanon's Moms Network, our kids have probably played together. And the thing is, my daughter, being 3, she already knows that I can be both a boy and a girl. Why can't 6 and 7-year-olds know that? Like, she knows what my pronouns are. My pronouns are they and them. Why am I scary to you? I'm 5 feet tall. I'm 31 years old. we've been around. We've been around. If you're the same age as me, I was around when you were a kid. I didn't prepare anything. I'm just surprised at, I guess, the attitudes and the hostility in this room. Like, I can feel it. My legs are shaking. I'm on a lot of antidepressants because of all of the abuse and bullying I've gotten as a kid. Like, look at my face. Do I look scary to you? I'm a trans person. I'm non-binary. Is this really scary? Is this something that you're afraid of? Like, I'm just a person. That's my neighbor. I live up the street from you. And yet, I still feel like you guys are making me out to be some evil, vicious person. I'm like, gender and sex are two different things. Just because my gender is something, I'm not talking to my kid about sex. She's 3, that's not age appropriate to talk to her about sex. But gender, I mean, you guys romanticize toddlers all the time, saying he's gonna be a heartbreaker, or oh, they're so cute, they're just little boyfriend and girlfriends, they're gonna get married when they're old one day. Like, you guys are, like, I've read all these books about being heterosexual, and yet I'm still gay. Like, I don't get it. We're not converting anyone, we just want to be accepted. And I'm gonna live here for at least another 10 years. So I'm hoping you guys will accept me too. I'm really hoping to be accepted by this community. Because even though I'm on so many antidepressants, I'm still gonna cry and be anxious and like faint and freak out. So I'm gonna stand here in silence for the remaining of my time so that you guys can look at me and see the person that you're vilifying when you're saying, I don't want my kid to learn about you.
You know what, guys, I'm gonna pull it back this way. I'm complimentary of the passion of the speaker. If you would kindly address comments to the board, please, so we can keep it professional.
You don't want to look at me?
Hey, ma'am.
I just
Ma'am.
I just want to be looked at. I just want to be seen.
All right, guys, before this devolves, thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. If you have anything else, any other comments that you'd like to make?
Ma'am, sir, it's fine with
I'm
me.
so sorry.
I don't
I'm
even
still
know.
learning. Thank you. It is.
It's not. Just say Tessa. That's all I am.
Tessa.
Tessa.
Thank you. Tessa, is there anything else that you'd like to say? And I apologize for the,
You have to be sorry. Just be accepting. I don't want to carry your feelings of apologies. I just want to be accepted. I just want to be looked at and be seen and not be looked down on. I just want to be equal. And it's really hard to just exist. Unless you want your transgender kids also to be on antidepressants. Ugh.
thank you, Tessa. Any other comments this evening?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on to the next commenter. Mr. Stengel indicates there are some hands online. It's a fairly singular theme tonight, so I want to jump in the middle and offer some comments from my perspective. This is a difficult but very important conversation for us to be having. I'm proud that our district has an express strategic goal set forth and approved by the board to offer safe, welcoming, and inclusive environment in all of our schools. During my service on the board, I've had a number of opportunities to speak to this particular goal and the critical role that kindness, empathy, and understanding play in how the district operates and the lessons that we teach our students. At last month's board meeting, we recognized an art installation at Hoover Elementary created by the students in collaboration with the Michaela's Voice Foundation. This beautiful work of art trumpeted a message of kindness and an appreciation of our diversity. So effective was this project that it inspired one of our then fifth grade students to write and publish a book about kindness and diversity. So it works. Teaching our kids to be kind, teaching our kids to respect each other, regardless of our differences, works. Reflecting on this project, at the last meeting, I commented that all of our students are blessed with different gifts and abilities. All of our students have value, and all of our students have potential. All of our students are different from all of our other students. There is beauty, empathy, and diversity of experience to be gained by all when everyone is included and when everyone is respected. Our society includes transgender people. They're our neighbors, they're our friends, they're our coworkers, they're our family, there are kids, as has been shared, in our school district that are transgender. And they deserve to be treated with respect, empathy, and kindness, just like every other member of the community. I reviewed both of these books, and the message of both was to be kind to each other regardless of our differences. They're not propaganda. They're not pushing a political agenda. They're not attempting to indoctrinate anybody. They're not ideological. I think there was an example given about Mr. Rogers talking about family structures. I remember a Mr. Rogers episode. The different families look different. It's the same conversation. Not that long ago, our schools were segregated by race. Being gay was a crime. People of different intellectual abilities were institutionalized for life. You couldn't marry who you loved if that person was the wrong race or if they were the wrong gender. In the past several decades, we have made great strides. And I look forward to a day when no disclaimer is necessary to teach our students about the beauty of diversity. But I recognize that growth is not always easy. To help the administration, as Dr. Steinhauer has outlined, indicated that there are some resources that are being provided on the district website that we're looking for folks that were looking for information for how to talk to their kids about this issue, to give parents notification if that's necessary at this time. You know, I hope that at some point we can grow past it where it is necessary, but if it's necessary now as we grow together, I'm sure that the administration is happy to accommodate that. You know, I thought back as I reflected on this, you know, not that long ago, I remember President Obama, you know, the bastion of liberal ideology when he ran in 2008, you know, that same-sex marriage was just a bridge too far. He could only get behind civil unions. Look how far we've come since 2008. To me, this is the same. This is race, this is gender, this is intellectual ability. This is treating each other with respect and kindness. That's what the messages of these books were. They were not about ideology. They were not about propaganda. They were not about politics. They're about respect and kindness. And that is absolutely an important lesson for us to teach our kids as it is memorialized in our strategic plan. Thank you. Next commenter, please.
Do we have folks online?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I keep shooting it down, so I'm gonna allow this person to offer comment, and then I will. Sorry, Mr. Stengel, that I missed some online commenters. Please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jane Walsh. I want to thank the district. I am thrilled that I live in a district that has a book for first graders on the day of trans visibility, and that's why I'm here today. So my daughter, this is Josephine, received the book Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls for her 5th birthday. And one story that she loved was about Coy Mathis, an elementary school student. And here's one passage from that page, which is page 46 for anyone who has that book at home. Quote, one night, Coy asked his mom, when are we going to the doctor to have me fixed into a girl? The doctor explained, usually boys feel okay with being boys and girls are fine with being girls. But there are some boys who feel female and girls who feel male. They're called transgender, and Coy is a transgender girl. She was born in a boy's body, but deep inside, she feels that she's a girl and she should be allowed to be one. So my daughter, at the age of 5, had no issue understanding the difference between sex and gender. She's now 10. I have a statement that she sent with me tonight, but I can tell you that the way she explained it to me at the age of 5 was this: I was born a girl, and I am a girl. If I had a boy body, I would still be a girl, because that's who I am. So I'm cisgender. But if I was born a boy, I'd be transgender, because I am a girl. That's who I am. It's just kind of a quick review. Sex is what you're born with, your reproductive organs. That means male, female, intersex. People who are intersex make up about 1.7% of the population, which is about the same number of people born with red hair. So that's a lot of people. Gender, by contrast, is the cultural expectations for femininity and masculinity. It's not physical, it's not inborn, it's not biological. Gender, in comparison to sex, is shaped by the cultural and social context. Every society transforms sex into gender. What might be considered a man's activity in our culture could be a woman's activity in another culture, such as house building. In addition, not all cultures subscribe to the gender binary or the either or notion of gender. Some cultures have historically had 3 genders. Navajo culture has historically had 4 genders. What we consider to be quote unquote normal is a social construct. So an easy way to remember is that sex is between the legs and gender is between the ears. When I was pregnant and having an ultrasound, the ultrasound tech asked me, "Do you want to know the gender of your baby?" And my response was, "You mean that you have that type of technology?" What the technician really meant to ask me was, did I want to know the sex of my baby? My kids would let me know their gender. Most of the time, people's gender match their sex, which is cisgender, but that's not always the case. And when sex and gender do not match, we have transgender, we have people who identify as non-binary. The trans community, as you've heard tonight, has always existed, and no one should be excluded for who they are. Every kid has the right to see themselves represented in books that we read and their family represented in the books that we read. It would feel pretty terrible to never see yourself or your story in the books at school. Transgender people are 4 times more likely than cisgender people to be victims of violent crime. And the Trevor Project has found that a majority of transgender and non-binary youth contemplate dying by suicide. Kids don't have a hard time learning the difference between sex and gender. Adults do. When our schools create visibility and space for the trans community, for every community, we are creating a better world. We are teaching understanding. We are teaching our kids to value difference, whether that difference is rooted in social class, race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexuality, neurodiversity, religion, the list goes on and on. When we don't, that's when we start failing our kids in our community. So don't ban any books. Our kids deserve better than that. Josephine, do you want to read your statement? Do you want to?
Okay. Books are our main key in learning. They help us understand things that might be confusing to say in words. If you ban them, people who are transgender, both or neither boy or girl might feel like they don't belong because no one learned about it. Banning some books will hurt our community. People who are different are no different than us. They are true to themselves. No, you shouldn't ban these books. Kids who need to learn. Some adults don't even know about it, and that's not good. Everyone should feel that they belong and everyone should have a say.
Thank you.
Hi, Melinda Burdick, Park Ridge Lane. I just am here with a voice that celebrates diversity. I want to raise kids who can talk about diversity comfortably, because that's the real world that they're in, and that's the real world that they're headed into. Confusing topics do raise questions that parents are welcome to answer from their own worldviews and their own values. Children's books are just a window into the lives and thoughts of people, both who are similar to them and reflect them, and people who are different than them. Books are used to teach and to stimulate thoughts and discussion, and that discussion carries over to home. It does in our home. Our kids ask us all kinds of things, from little all the way up to some really big things in high school. Books are used to teach kindness, to reflect kind words, to model kindness that stems from awareness. There's nothing wrong with answering children if they talk about sensitive curiosities. Answer them how you believe. That may be different in my home than it is in yours, and that is okay, because that is the real world we live in. Our schools are at their best if they prepare students to live and cooperate in this real world, this diverse world. I would be pleased to know that my children, who happen to be white, straight, and Christian, are growing up knowing and respecting people who look different than them, think different than them, behave different than them, believe differently than them, because education and acceptance do go hand in hand. And that will help them to be sensitive and compassionate collaborators in this real world when they're working, when they're going to college, when they're met with these variety of people in our world. It can only just create understanding and sensitivity. Even in elementary school classrooms, we teach historic civil rights of Black people as they struggled to gain their civil rights. We admire the courage of that fight. We teach the civil rights of voices of women who wanted to be treated as equals and vote and be heard and recognized. Boys and girls admire that glass ceiling that they broke, and we can recognize and acknowledge the voices of people who struggle to be treated as equals just because they don't fit a traditional gender role. It doesn't make our cisgender kids gay. It won't harm them. It will help them. It'll help them ask questions that will help them be part of this real world. Exposure as children to diverse thinking only makes them better critical thinkers, asks better questions, fosters a deep and genuine conversation with people they love and trust. I have those conversations with my kids. And so I'm just in favor of a school that makes diversity more comfortable to speak of. This is a public school, and that's where that conversation belongs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stengel, next online commenter, please.
Hello, is the audio
Hi,
coming
good
in
evening.
okay?
Please state your name and address. You'll have 5 minutes.
Hi, this is Aaron Steinfeld. I'm at Arden Road. So I have a long history in the disability space. When my wife and I came to check out houses here in Mount Lebanon many years ago, we entered a house and we were going through the different rooms. It was an open house. And we encountered a room that anyone in the disability space knows exactly what it is. It was a room that was designed to essentially hide a family member with a disability away from the rest of the community, keep them invisible, not bring shame on the family, that sort of thing. Most people didn't recognize what this room is because you wouldn't know what it was if you weren't looking, if you didn't have history in this space. The disability movement has made great strides over the years because of the decision and the movement to become visible in the world, to get out in the world, to be in the mainstream, to be seen and represented by everybody in the community. This is why kids were mainstreamed into regular schools instead of sent off to institutions. This is part of the benefit of this approach, is that the mystery and the confusion about people with disabilities gets vastly reduced as kids meet their peers with disabilities. We all know, so many of us from our youth remember the kids first starting to come into our classrooms, kids with Down syndrome, kids with wheelchairs, and of course, I met my wife in high school, and she's deaf, and some of you know her, and she was mainstreamed right into the regular classrooms. So this is really important to us personally, this idea that you should be out and visible in space, and there should be no kind of hiding what this person is or their identity or the fact that they exist. Now, at a certain point in elementary school, it was pretty clear to us that our son was gay, well, is gay. We saw it coming. We knew it was coming from a long way away. It was pretty obvious. And in elementary school, he decided it was time to tell us and told us that he was gay and informed us that he had known since he was basically in first grade. He asked, is it okay to come out and be visible to everyone else? And, we had some conversations with him about when he wanted that to happen. And he came out at the start of middle school. Everybody was pretty clear what was going on. Oh, sorry, my wife just corrected me. It was elementary school. It was during elementary school. Is what happens when you live with an English major. They'll correct you. So anyway, and he came out, and he's been out for a long time now. And I got to be honest with you, he is one of the best things about him is that he's been an incredibly active what we call Madrachim in our temple. He works with the young kids. He helps on Sunday school. We're very proud of all the work he does in that space. And I got to tell you, he's incredibly out. Everyone in high school knows he's gay. It's pretty damn obvious. And that presence, that identity, that existence goes back to my earlier point. It demystifies, it makes it understandable. These people exist, they're real, and being present in the world and being mainstreamed and just admitting and accepting that they're there is extremely important. The Trevor Project is a really big deal. The numbers are not small. When he decided he wanted to support the Trevor Project as part of his Bar Mitzvah project, we were incredibly proud, and he raised a fair amount of money for them. It was really great. I cannot stress enough the importance of acknowledging the existence of LGBTQ people in our community. These are people who know who they are as early as first grade. He knew in first grade, we knew it in first grade. It was pretty obvious, as I said. And I don't think it's fair to say that this is something that, gets to be filtered by the parents, because the last thing I want is my kid to be shoved in a room and hidden from the world when he's in elementary school. Those sheltered rooms for the people with disabilities in the back corners of people's houses, that's basically what's being discussed here. And that's just not acceptable in this day and age. They exist, they're here in our community, and I gotta tell you, they're in a lot of your communities too, whether you know it or not. A lot of them are hiding because they're afraid, and that's not good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next in-person commenter, please. Hi, please state your name and address. You'll have 5
I'm
minutes.
Jennifer Anderson. I'm going to be very brief. When my kids were 2 and 4, we met a 3-year-old trans boy on the playground, and they had no problem with it. They weren't confused. And when kids are that little, everything's new to them, and they just accepted it like anything else. So I just wanted to share my personal experience with kids meeting a person in person and accepting them. And there wasn't like we decided to have a big talk with them. It was a human being that they met that existed. And it was a child they played with. And they had no problem with that child. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kristen Wessel. I just wanted to address some of the comments this evening about the books being age appropriate. According to the educational experts, the publisher says the book is geared to kids ages 3 to 7. The American Library Association lists it as appropriate for ages 4 to 8. And the National Council of Teachers of English recommend this book be taught in early primary grades. And I also heard some of the speakers spewing a radical political idea that parents should dictate what is taught in public schools. This idea is not supported by years of public education pedagogy, law, or court cases. In the words of the Supreme Court, public schools have a responsibility to the public welfare, and they need to teach students the things that support the public welfare, what the public needs them to know. And trans people exist in our community. Trans kids exist in our elementary schools, and we need to educate students about the appropriate terminology, how to treat people lovingly, how to accept people for exactly who they are, even if that presentation of who they are may change over the time that you know them. And so there is nothing, when this controversy first came up, I went out and I purchased the books so that I could read them and speak to them. And as others have pointed out, there's nothing in these books that is inappropriate. You know, the parents, one woman mentioned that parents made a mistake and we shouldn't be teaching kids that parents make a mistake. That is actually not a good lesson to teach kids. We should teach kids that everybody makes mistakes, and that, as in the book, the parents learned from their child and became more loving people because of what their child taught them. And that's a lesson that every kid should learn, that even though we make mistakes, we can learn from those mistakes and we can become better people. That's a lesson that we would want every child to take away. So I just wanted to make those points, that the experts believe that these books are age appropriate, and the experts also believe that, and the longstanding tradition of public education in this country believes that the schools should be teaching exactly what the students need to know to build a better community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your feedback is valuable to us. As I did mention, when this came to our attention, Dr. Irvin and Mr. Belowitz, who is a principal, talked with the teacher, talked about the rationale, talked about, is there a better way to do it, or is there no way to do it better? That's why we take public comment. Parents do have the ability to weigh in on curriculum matters and weigh in on what we discuss. But I want to go back to what I said at the very beginning. I will do everything in my power to make sure that every child feels welcomed and included in this school district. That's our mission. That's my mission as an educator, and I will protect their rights just as I protect the rights of parents to weigh in on curriculum matters. So we're looking at it, and if we can do it better, we certainly will do better.
Thank you.